and 5 great candidates to choose from. Tonight, I want to pitch to you why I think you should vote for me and by proxy for the NDP. This is a critical time. Canada and the world are being ravaged by the effects of climate change. We're in the middle of wave 4 of a pandemic that has claimed over 4 million lives. There are refugee and human rights crises all over the world. I hope you'll agree it was an odd time to call an election. There's so much we need to do. We have to get people out of danger in Afghanistan. We need to lock down national childcare. We have to get people out of from under COVID-19. Instead of working with a minority parliament where he knew he could get the NDP support to get things done, Justin Trudeau shut down parliament to ask Canadians for a majority he does not deserve. He destroyed his own bill to ban conversion therapy. He left the childcare job half done. He gambled with our future. So I'm going to ask you to vote for me, not because I'm better than any of my opponents. Nope, we all have our strengths and weaknesses. I'm going to ask you to vote NDP because if you want real progress in Canada, we are the only party that can get it done. Remember this, Justin Trudeau talks big, the NDP gets things done. The Liberal record is a long string of broken promises. 2015 will be the last election using first past the post. Enough said about that. You shouldn't have to choose between buying your food and paying for your medication. Yes, pharmacare, first promised in 1997, now not even in the Liberal platform. On reconciliation, failure to fulfill the calls to action, failure to end decades-long boil water advisories. And let's not forget, thank you for your donation, blatant disrespect for the First Nations of Canada. On climate change, they bought a pipeline. They increased subsidies to oil and gas companies. The Liberals have ambitious targets, but our emissions have gone up every year. And the most cynical of all, paid sick days. During COVID, for 18 months, we begged Mr. Trudeau to show leadership and mandate paid sick days in the federal sectors over dozens of times. He refused. Then he called an election and promised that if we elect him, he will give them to us. Thousands suffered for this delay. Now, Liberals will tell you that they've made lots of progress on this and that, but the fact remains that we are falling further and further behind. We need action, and Jagmeet Singh has the team that can get the job done. We want to finish the job that Tommy Douglas started, truly universal, publicly funded head-to-toe healthcare. As a physician, I see people who can't afford the medications they need to stay healthy. This makes them sick and puts a big strain on our healthcare system. We will implement pharmacare next year. Same with dental care. First for the people who have no coverage, then eventually everyone. Eye care, physio, mental health care, and much, much more. COVID uncovered the tragedy in our long-term care system. Deaths in for-profit facilities were much higher than in not-for-profit homes. We will take the profit out of long-term care, so every dollar goes to help our loved ones. On climate change, the world demands action. We have no more time to waste. The Conservative membership won't even accept that it exists. The Liberals are getting us nowhere. We will stop subsidies for oil and gas. We'll invest that money in green energy technology, and we'll bring the oil and gas workers over with us to good, well-paying, unionized jobs with paid sick days. If there's one thing people have contacted me about more than anything else in this election here in Willowdale, it's been cell phone and internet fees. Trudeau promised to lower them. He failed. We'll get it done. We have a housing crisis in Canada. The Liberals have got us nowhere. The Conservatives will sell public land to developers to make profits. New Democrats will create 500,000 units of affordable housing for Canadians. This is just the start. But how can you trust us to do what we say? Well, look at our track record. When the Liberals offered Canadians the CERB of $1,000, we made him increase it to $2,000. We made Trudeau increase the wage subsidy from 10 to 75%, saving thousands of jobs. Trudeau talks, Jagmeet delivers. Vote for the NDP and we'll get the job done. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hal. Really appreciate it. The next candidate we are going to go to is the PC candidate, Daniel Lee.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight's debate of all candidates. I am sure that I ran into many of you at your doors. Me and my team has knocked over 45,000 doors in a short time. I think it was like 4 weeks. It was a hard work, but we had it done. And as to tell you who I am, I'm a pharmacist. I graduated from University of Toronto, Faculty of Pharmacy. I am a long time resident of Willowdale. I lived on Bayview, Comer area for almost 20 years. My kids grew up here. I had many pharmacies, but two of them were particularly in Willowdale. Uh, I am a small business owner as well. I have a wonderful wife and Justin and Elizabeth, who I'm very proud of, and they are very supportive of me running for office in Ottawa. I would not be able to run without the full support of my wife, Sandy, where she's been constantly on my side, constantly praying for me and giving me encouragement to go one after another day and another day of hard work at the doors. Without her, I would not be in front of you running as a candidate. I also, you know, my kids, as who they are, they study whatever I told them to study, whatever they want to study, but they stuck to the healthcare, and I'm proud that they chose the field that they have chosen. Uh, I you know I find myself that my passion is volunteering and talking to people. I believe that the issues are not, if the issues are not heard, we cannot never resolve them. Unlike the current MP or Ehsassi, where he made it to Toronto Star, where it's one of the most free trips that an MP had in a year, and that's one thing that you don't want to be when you're trying to serve a community where the issues are not being heard. When you're not in the office, then you are not able to hear that issue. And I am very disappointed that he chose that route of free trips and going out to other country. I believe that we have Conservative and Aaron O'Toole have a concrete plan. It's called Canada Recovery Plan. We're going to secure the future by securing jobs. We are going to create 1 million jobs in 2 years that we lost during the pandemic. We're going to have taking people away from the serve and try to help the small businesses who I talk to many owners of small businesses who are suffering because of a lack of business and not being able to open. And $60,000 that they got from the federal government is just not enough. We are going to increase the resources that we provide, not just line of credit, but as well as subsidizing the wages for them to hire people back with a good long-term jobs. And we're going to also secure accountability. As you know, we had this 6 years of Justin Trudeau being entangled with different ethics problems. We're going to fight that. We're going to make sure that that does not happen in our government by introducing anti-corruption laws, so that people serving the Canadian should not be acting unethically. We're going to secure mental health. I am particularly proud of this plan, where as a pharmacist, I've seen a lot of people with mental problems suffering more and more during the pandemic, and I am proud that our Conservative has committed to solve some of the issues surrounding mental health. And we're going to secure our country. We failed Liberals failed Canadians by delaying release of the release of the vaccines. They they tried to invest into one vaccine made in China, and they failed on that, and they were late in trying to obtain vaccines, as you know. And I feel sorry for those who have lost their family members during that time that we did not have vaccines where other countries were getting. And
Daniel, if you could wrap up.
we're gonna make sure that we secure Canada's economy by balancing our budget in 10 years. You have two choices in this election. You have conservative government where we'll get Canada back in its feet and rebuild our economy, our jobs, and our ways of life. Or
Thank you,
have
Daniel.
more reckless spending, more corruption, more fiscal waste, and more economic decline.
Thank you,
Both
Daniel. Thank you so much, Daniel. Really appreciate it. The next candidate we will go to is from the PPC party, Al Wahab.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Al Wahab, and I'm your PPC candidate. Thank you for providing this medium for us to present ourselves and our ambitions for the future of Willowdale and our country. It is a pleasure to share this virtual stage with Anna, Ali, Hal, and Daniel, who, like myself, I assume, are in this election because of our love for this community and our country, and to represent the voices of Willowdale. As the son of a police officer and parents who sacrificed much to bring us to Canada to escape communism, I have dedicated most of my life to helping people and bringing communities together. I attended the University of Alberta with goals of becoming a neurosurgeon, only to discover a whole new world in ballroom dancing. You can imagine the looks on my mother's face when she heard that. Through dance, I was able to learn much about people, myself, business, and society as a whole. I believe in having a multicultural society where we can be united as one nation, recognizing and embracing our differing opinions and celebrating our values and cultures together. My goal is to participate in creating a better and safer community that offers security to our children, our elders, and ourselves, a place to live, work, play, and retire in comfort. I decided to run in this federal election as I could no longer stand by quietly watching as our country becomes divided like I've never experienced before. It is divided because of lack of trust in our government. The deception, the broken promises, the weak charity SNC-Lavalin debacle, the financing of large corporations who laid off employees during the pandemic, the overtaxing of small businesses and individuals to finance government overspending, and the financial bribery to seniors and Indigenous communities to garner votes for the current government. After 6 years of increased taxes, increased housing costs, increased homelessness, increased crimes, increased debt, it is time for change. To quote philosopher Lao Tzu, if you do not change your direction, you may end up where you're heading. I am committed to work for and represent each individual, the community, and your businesses to make sure Willowdale continues to grow and develop into a place of security and happiness for our families and our future. I will advocate for Willowdale and the residents with unwavering determination and care, and will always listen and respond to your concerns. I would like to thank our frontline workers for their hard work and sacrifices during this pandemic. And I would like to request 30 seconds from my time to bow our heads in remembrance of our families and friends, our frontline workers, and soldiers and veterans who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country, for us and our children, and for our friends who perished in the April 23rd, 2018 van attack. Please join me in bowing our heads for 30 seconds. Thank you much, everyone, very much. I look forward to hearing from you and to advocating on behalf of you and Willowdale. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Al. The next candidate we have is Ms. Anna Gorka from the Green Party.
Greetings, Willowdalers. I'm really honored that you would indulge my candidacy and hear me speak today. I will try to honor that to my best abilities. I too was imagining a moment of silence, but I'd like to thank Al Wahab for conducting such a moment for me, because I sure needed it. And I am actually dedicating my campaign to the spirits of the that are now able to find passage and be properly honored. So I think I do need to take a moment as well to shed the distress and the alarming rate of this election, to calm my shoulders, and I invite you to do so too, and close your eyes and take a deep breath and just perhaps picture the underside of a canopy of trees, which is my favorite activity. Another favorite activity of mine is to browse the Green Party platform. It is truly based on wellness. Its genesis is around 40 years ago for our party. And the assumption on which we base our lenses for decision-making is that unmitigated exploitation will lead us to a dead end. And now, as would-be parliamentarians, I need to drive this message with priority that, of course, we respect an institution like the United Nations of this world. Of course, a report issued in the hands of such an entity would be the cream of the research. The IPCC report, unfortunately, outlines a code red for humanity. And it is on account of this emergency that I do step up to candidacy, because I believe that I'm a piece of the puzzle in solving the equation that it might take of diverse measures to ground us in safety and wellness. The Green Party never looks at the GDP first. We look at wellness and safety. That aside, we must progress without a sense of panic and simply work together. Out of 650 members of parliament, I think we could stand to have at least 5 Green Party members with their amazing shadow cabinet of scientists and collaboration as we summon an inter-party caucus for climate change response. I have thoughts on every issue of the day, and I will allow those to surface as we engage each question. But I'd like to say about myself that I come from a project management background where I had to reconcile stakeholders from such diverse interest angles to construct a 50-story tower, and I'm looking south to the downtown core, while negotiating the foundation boundary with Canada Broadcasting Corporation. And so Parliament would be a cakewalk for me, I think, even though it is my first candidacy. And after engaging parent council at a public school, I do think that I am seasoned in drama and parliamentary process and the benefit of civil discourse. I also have children, and I'd like to say that sometimes mothers know best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. And we have Mr. Ali Ehsassi.
Thank you so much. It is an incredible honor to join you all here tonight. I wanted to start off by thanking the BCNA and also say it is a great pleasure to appear before you, because I know you put a lot of work into this. You've reached out to other neighborhood associations as well. It's also an incredible honor to join you today with Hal, with Anna, with Al, and with Daniel. It has been the greatest honor of my life as the Member of Parliament for this riding over the course of the past 6 years. Now, as I'm sure you're all well aware, I came here to this country when I was 16 years old, and I owe this country a great debt of gratitude. It has been a country that has provided me with so much opportunity. And I've had the great privilege of benefiting from so many programs that were there, the incredible universities that we have in the city of Toronto, such as University of Toronto downtown, as well as Osgoode Hall at York University. So I am firm in understanding the values and understanding how important it is that we provide opportunities for all Canadians. Now, an election is an incredibly important time. It's a time for us all to reflect on the values that we cherish and we hold dear. It's a time to look to the future, to take stock of what we have been through and make sure that we can all move forward together. Now, I can tell you, I am very proud that this government has had. For example, it's important to bear in mind that there were many, many accomplishments from 2015 to 2019. Amongst the most significant, I will say, was the fact that this government actually managed to lift over 1 million Canadians out of poverty. It's also important to note that 1 million jobs were created from 2015 to 2019. Now, the last year and a half has been very, very difficult on every Canadian. But I don't need to tell you that we had a government that had everyone's back. We appreciated full well that we have to be there for individual Canadians. We have to be there for small businesses. And I'm happy to share with you that currently, having been through this a year and a half, that thanks to the resilience of Canadians and the resilience of our incredible businesses, 95% of the jobs that were lost are now back. Now, everyone will say that's a very easy job. It's not. Let's look at our neighbors to the south, where they have only managed to recover 75% of the jobs that they lost during COVID. So I can tell you, having had the opportunity to work with Canadian companies, to work with Canadian entrepreneurs who did a splendid job ensuring that we were producing PPE in this country. And we went from a country that was producing less than 1% of the PPE that we were using to one that produces 50% of the PPE that we currently use. So I am very, very bullish on our country and all that Canadians and Canadian businesses have to offer. But I'm here to share our vision. It's about where we want to go in the future. And I should also say this. Mr. Lee took the liberty of saying that I had gone on a few trips. Well, allow me to share the facts. When I was first elected, the Lutheran Church said that they wanted to take me to Africa, specifically to Ethiopia, so I could see all the tremendous work they are doing in Africa. Another trip was a trip that, as all of you are well aware, I care deeply about human rights. So the Montreal Institute of Genocide Studies had me go to Milan for 10 hours just to do a speech on the significance of human rights. But I know full well that we're not here to attack each other. We're here to address all those issues that are important to Canadians, whether it's seniors, whether it's climate change, whether it's healthcare, whether it's gun control. These are the issues that Canadians care about. And I truly look forward to addressing all of these issues during the course of tonight's debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ali. Now we'll move on to the question question format of the debate. So again, as I mentioned before, certain questions are directed towards a particular candidate. Then the other candidates may raise their hand on their Zoom for rebuttals. Again, there's 2 rebuttals. So if all the candidates raise their hands, I may not be able to pick on all of you, but I will try to spread the ability to speak around the different candidates so everybody has a chance to speak. The first question is to Daniel. Use of fossil fuels is essential to the climate change discourse. The greater good comes at a cost, however. Your party has strongly opposed to the carbon taxing and carbon pricing with the goal to lessen additional costs that Canadians have to bear. This has been met with both support and opposition across the nation. Parties across the board talk about lessening financial burdens, but easier, cheaper access to resources is of importance to the average Canadian. Prices continue to rise at the pumps. What purpose does it serve that your party changed its position on eliminating carbon-related taxation? And how will your party's plan lessen the financial burden that they face day to day? How does that translate to the residents of Willowdale? Daniel, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, great question.
Sorry,
Thank you for
apologies. You'll have 2 minutes.
Oh, 2 minutes. Okay. Thank you for that question. It is important for us to discuss climate change. I believe that I want to leave my family, my kids, the same fresh air that we enjoy today. So, I mean, I definitely feel that there is some changes. Look at the forest fires. Look at the flooding. There is some changes. So we do need to work on it. We as a conservative party, we looked at different ways of fighting the climate change. We reached out to experts and scientists and see which way is the best way to go. And obviously, their answer was putting a price on the carbon. We had listened to the scientists and we had listened to the researchers, and we came up with pricing a carbon. I am very proud that Aaron O'Toole and Conservative Party has put that position through. I believe that we don't believe that taxing people and government doing whatever they do with the money is good for everyone. We believe that whatever savings every time you pump up the gas is gone to your own savings account. In return, you can make good investments in controlling climate change. For example, you could purchase energy efficient windows and things like that. Right now, what we have a Liberal government of 6 years of failure in this file. They have not met one single emission targets, and I'm very disappointed. They keep talking about they have the best plan. What's the point of talking about it if they cannot accomplish it? And I believe that Conservative Party has the best plan to accomplish our goal of controlling emissions.
Thank you so much, Daniel. We now have opportunity for 2 1-minute rebuttals from candidates. So Hal, you raised your hand first, so you get to go first. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So I agree with Mr. Lee that the Liberals have taken us nowhere when it comes to climate change. In fact, our emissions have been going up, and it's great to set targets, and you can set higher and higher targets, but that's not going to actually get the job done. If you continue to support fossil fuel development, if you give money to fossil fuel companies, if you build pipelines, that's not going to get the job done. Now, Mr. Lee's party doesn't even believe that climate change is a problem. At least they voted against recognizing it. So I think really the only alternative that we have is to vote for a party that's going to stop the subsidies to oil and gas and move on investments for green energy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hal. Anna, you're recognized for another 1-minute rebuttal.
Thank you, Hal, for these acknowledgements. And the Green Party is very happy to be providing the platform that slowly enters the discourse. NDP platform is verbatim the 2019 climate action platform issued by the Green Party. Our party is the only one that will cease pipeline expansion projects and start with the shutting of the Trans Mountain pipeline and phase and scale back until it's just bitumen left. As a Canadian student, I was a tree planter out in Fort McMurray, and I witnessed the working conditions. I witnessed the ecology scale destruction out there. It is a cradle of life, the top of a watershed. The Fraser River is drying out. That's an adjacent river. This is the Athabasca River with the oil sands operations. One thing that the Conservatives don't understand is that there is 40 years of decommissioning work out there for all of the trades. We will be harvesting and smelting metal for rebar. We will be producing and patenting construction materials. This is all part of the green transition, and it's a beautiful thing. When we divest from oil, we will have money to enter the green economy boom that other nations are already ahead on. Let's stop being behind, everybody, and join the global discourse. Do our part, for Canada has the number one worst emissions record right now.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Sorry. The next question we have is to Hal. COVID has been a stark reminder that the movement of the economy stands for no one or no thing. Small businesses have suffered the most, which has impacted their hiring and keeping of staff. This is a double-edged sword. It is impacting businesses, and therefore it's also impacting their ability to hire employees, and so employment. What sustainable policies is your party looking to employ to counter such efforts?
That's an excellent question. So we know that COVID has uncovered a lot of inequity in our system, and it has really shown how poorly the capitalist model of business works. One of the complaints that we've heard, one of the reasons that the Liberals in their last budget lowered the already barely sustainable CERB was that people weren't going back to jobs because they were getting CERB. Well, forgive my privilege, but I would not consider $2,000 a month a luxury entitlement. People do want to go back to work, but going back to work at minimum wage, where you're basically working for poverty wages, is not the answer. And any business that has a business model that works based on poverty wages is not a good business model. So what we need to do is we need to support small business to come back, to recover. We have to make sure that they provide a decent living wage to everybody. And that can be done by giving credits to the companies that hire people and providing them with subsidies for that until we can get back to what used to be normal, the better normal, as we call it. We have to support small business, but we can't do that without supporting the people who work for them, the people who create the wealth for business. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hal. We have 2 1-minute rebuttals, if anybody would like to speak. Anna, you've raised your hand, so you have a 1-minute rebuttal there.
The Green Party recognizes that small business is the backbone of private sector employment, out competing other sectors, corporate level. When this government has put 17 billion into corporate welfare, telecom reduced its services and reduced its number of employees. These are situations that ought to have better steering. So Green Party is prepared to do that.
Al, you've been recognized for the other minute.
Regarding the aid or the help to small businesses, our party believes in tax cuts. Leaving more money in the hands of the people and businesses will encourage spending and will encourage our businesses to hire more staff as their demand for their services or products increase. So this is our platform in terms of helping the recovery from this pandemic.
Thank you so much, Al. The next question is to Al. Al, Ontario's debt to GDP ratio stands at almost 48%. The provinces continue to seek aid from the federal government to increase the Canada Health Transfer to 35% from its current 22% and already declining share. What would your party do to help provinces maintain public health care at a high caliber, given the federal government debt to GDP ratio is now almost over 50% itself and may not be able to provide the support that it once did?
The federal government has interfered in what was exclusive provincial jurisdiction in terms of healthcare for many, many years. They have provided funding to the provinces, but the provinces are forced to comply with a set of conditions from the federal government that prevents innovation and reform in the provinces. The provinces should be allowed to implement reforms that will be the most beneficial to them. And we believe that throwing federal money at the problem is not the solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Al. Rebuttals, I have Hal. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I think I'd like to take the exact opposite view. Imagine for one moment, close your eyes if you'd like, and imagine that we decide to leave the provinces to allow for reform. Let's leave healthcare reform to Doug Ford. Let's leave healthcare reform to Jason Kenney. I mean, Doug Ford is not even here. He's in hiding, and our hospitals, which are part of healthcare, are being attacked by anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers. That's not leadership. No, the federal government has the duty to provide leadership and set national standards. That's why we should be putting more money into healthcare, because with that money comes the ability to say, okay, here's what we have to do. Let's set national standards.
Thank you, Hal. I'll recognize Ali Ehsassi.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to respond to Al and very much on the same page as Hal. It is absolutely imperative that there be leadership from the federal government. I would remind you that during a difficult period that we have been through over the course of the past year and a half, 8 out of every $10 that has been spent to make sure that we're there for Canadians, to make sure that we're there for Canadian businesses, came from the federal government. Now, during the course of this campaign, we have heard from the Conservative Party. The leader of the party has said he's in favor of innovation. Well, that's not acceptable. There has to be a federal leader who understands that we have to preserve and safeguard our healthcare system. It is imperative that we be there and we provide that leadership. So I very much agree with Hal. This is something that we cannot risk. It's something that Canadians cherish from coast to coast to coast, and it's not to just be left to the provinces.
Thank you so much, Ali. Now I'm going to take this opportunity to entertain some of the questions we've got through chat from the audience. So there's a question. As a senior citizen, and this is a question to all the candidates, so each of you will have 1 minute to address this issue. As a senior citizen, I would like to know what is the position of each candidate on the City of Toronto's proposed homeless transitional housing project on the parkland grounds that belong to the seniors' residents at 215 Willowdale Avenue, Willowdale Manor. Can each candidate clearly indicate if they will either support the seniors at Willowdale Manor by working to prevent this proposed project from advancing, or will they sit idly by and allow the seniors' parkland to be destroyed, thus ruining their physical and mental health well-being? I will start with Anna.
Well, yes, that rapid housing funding that was so abrupt failed to really receive the earmarks that would target the problem. And so it even contravenes, which shows a lack of coordination within the party, the National Infrastructure Act, which was rolled out by McKenna, who unfortunately has left the party and isn't running right now, which seeks to lay out the understanding and the language for identifying our natural parks and trees as vital infrastructures to mitigate floods and high heat. We must preserve those spaces. There sure are a lot of vacancies in towns. There are other ways to go about the housing crisis. Green Party's here to help you.
Thank you so much, Anna. Hal, you have 1 minute.
Thanks. Canada is in a housing crisis. There are people who are homeless because they can't afford a place to live. We all have to, as Canadians, do our part to make sure that we take care of everybody. Now, with respect to this particular project, we have to look at whether or not this is going to achieve the goals that we're trying to achieve. And if it's a beautiful park and there's nothing like it anywhere else for people to go to, then that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. But I would caution that we shouldn't get into the not in my backyard syndrome, where you punt something to somewhere else and then the people who need it are rejected everywhere. I think we have to find a balance for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hal. Ali, you have 1 minute.
Yes, absolutely. As you know, housing is a huge crisis in our country. And it is imperative that the federal government partner with different levels of government to address this issue. Now, for the first time, the Liberal government has introduced a national housing strategy. But with respect to the case that you just referenced, it's important to know what the facts were. The facts were that the City of Toronto asked the federal government for funding because they realized that there are a lot of vulnerable Canadians. So Toronto City Council came to the federal government and said that they needed rapid resources to build affordable housing. And that's exactly what we did. Now, why do I say this? Because all of these decisions as to location are made by the municipal government. Why am I clarifying this? Why am I highlighting it? Because Mr. Daniel Lee and his riding association have taken the liberty of sending flyers to everyone and naming me responsible for the location that was decided upon. Nothing could be further from the truth. As you can imagine, the City of Toronto has its own procedures for assessing sites for building housing. So at the federal level, we provide the funding, but it's
Thank you, Ali.
which determines where those houses are built.
Thank you. And Al, you have 1 minute.
I would agree with Ali that there are a lot of vulnerable people in our society, but that also includes our seniors. Protecting the parkland is important for them. It's important for our ecology. I don't believe that these housing should be fast-tracked like the federal government are proposing on Willowdale and at 175 Cummer. I would have to say that I would stand with the seniors in opposing this project.
Thank you very much, Al. We have another question. This one is directed to Daniel, and I will allow. Oh, Daniel, you're on mute. Okay.
I didn't get a chance to answer.
Oh, sorry. I apologize. My apologies. Yes, please, Daniel. Go ahead. You have 1 minute.
No worries. 1 minute is not good enough for me to explain this unjust ways of treating our vulnerable seniors on 175 Cummer Avenue. I have knocked many doors in the neighborhood near that site, and neighbors are very, very concerned that their voice is not being heard. I mean, that's important. That's Canadian ways of doing things. When we have a Ehsassi just when they're asking questions about how this process is worked, it's not my problem, it's the city's problem. That's just irresponsible. It is funded by the federal government. You had every right to say an opinion on this on behalf of the vulnerable seniors living in 175 Kamar Avenue. You did not, sir. You did not stand for them. And I implore you that you need to be in your writing. And you say you took 2 trips. Oh, come on. We all know how many trips you took. And that is the facts. Conservatives will always listen to the issues, and we will do our best to resolve the problems.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Ali, we're not taking any rebuttals on this one, but you'll have closing remarks, so you can always respond during that time. There's another question here. People have escaped communism from their home countries, are deeply concerned about their increasing censorship, discrimination against and regulation over Canadians, especially where their freedom of expression and freedom of mobility are concerned. What will you do to protect our rights as intended under the Charter? Specifically, what will happen with Bill C-16, C-10, C-36, and what will happen to protect the freedom of mobility of all Canadians? Again, 1 minute to each candidate. So we will start with Ali on this one.
Well, I disagree with the premise of your question. As you have rightly noted, we do have a charter. So no government can actually come forward and abridge our freedom of expression or all the other rights that we cherish as protected in the Charter of Rights. So this notion that anyone is trying to do that is, in my humble opinion, just wrong, because it would never stand up to scrutiny if it does go to court. What Canadians are concerned about is online hate. That is something that we should guard against. I mean, people in Willowdale understand this, given what we went through with the van attack. So no one is trying to take away anyone's rights. It's just that we recognize full well that online hate has to be dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ali. The next one we'll have Al. You'll have 1 minute.
I can totally understand as my family also came here to escape communism. And given the current situation in our country with the lockdowns and the mandates, and we do understand, yes, there is a COVID virus in existence. I can understand why people feel the way they do. Censorship is bad for all of us. I mean, we need our freedoms. People have the right to speak their minds and to do what they need to do. But I feel that the core issue of this isn't so much the censorship as it is a lack of trust in the government. It comes back to, having a government that does things that divides us. So as a result, people are scared. I mean, that's what happened in many countries that were ruled by communism. We're always divided and controlled.
Thank you, Al. Next, we'll have Hal.
Thank you. So I think we have to be really clear here. This has nothing to do with communism. This really has nothing to do with communism and nothing to do with taking away people's rights. Okay, we have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and that charter does limit what we can do if it's in the interest of our society. So the undercurrent that I'm seeing here is stuff about like vaccine certificates and mandatory vaccination and making people wear masks. Okay, that's not communism. That's science and public health. We have rights and we have responsibilities. And we have to work together as a society. There's no abrogation of rights there. And Ali's right, online hatred is a completely different issue, and it needs to be nipped in the bud as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hal. Daniel, you have 1 minute.
It is something that is to my heart. My father escaped North Korea from communism to South Korea, and I have tons of stories to tell you why we should not go into that route. This is the basic difference between the progressives and us as conservatives. You have a liberal government where they want to control more of things that they want to do. Why is it the government controlling who should not say, who should say things? Conservatives, it's all about small government, making sure the individual rights is protected. And if individual speech is, freedom of speech is not there, I don't think Canada is not going to be what it used to be. I truly believe that the Liberal government limiting the censoring in the social media is just wrong.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And Anna, you have 1 minute.
As soon as my family crossed the Iron Curtain, the country and our former country, Poland, entered a state of martial law. I believe that information and communication is better sorted in the open. And while we're critiquing the use of the word communism, which has been a rampant issue over the globe right now and is highly frustrating, it is a system which has been manipulated by autocratic regimens. So in my case, that was a Soviet interpretation. And coming from oppression, understanding the freedom fight, I believe that we are experiencing a wave of autocratic maneuvering by governments right now. So the Green Party is a shining example of having social justice discourse in the open. Our party leader seems to subtly and gently be suggesting that those with a lived experience of something are entitled to speak about their own lived experience, whereas the other parties are still sorting out their colonial roots and still struggle with trying to dominate non-dominant cultures. So I think that in Canada, we ought to protect our liberty for sure. I do oppose the bills.
Thank you so much, Anna. So now we go back to the previous format of asking a question, 2-minute remark with 1-minute rebuttals. Question on healthcare to Hal. Ontario continues to face long emergency wait times. More and more Canadians are feeling the stress. Add on to that a pandemic, which is becoming an accepted reality of our time. And increasingly, it is felt that our health infrastructure is just not adequate in handling the demand. Should you be elected to office, what 2 areas in healthcare would you focus on where the most gains can be made in the next few years? And how is this relevant to the people of Willowdale?
In 30 seconds or less, right? So there are a lot of priorities that we have to have. It's true, our ERs are overcrowded. Part of that was because of the pandemic. One of the things that we have to understand is that we have flu season every year and we're always overwhelmed. This happens every year. Why? Because previous governments have always decreased our capacity, cut funding, increased the number of beds. We need a healthcare system that has enough beds that can manage a surge. So that's one thing we have to put money back into healthcare to do that, which means that sometimes there will be empty beds, but we can't be going at 110% all the time. So we'll work with the provinces who have the responsibility for this to make sure they have enough funding for a surge capacity. The other thing is, by implementing pharmacare and giving people the medications they need to stay well, they won't wind up with the complications of high blood pressure, diabetes, other things like strokes, heart attacks. They won't end up in the ICU. And if we can keep people healthy, we'll decrease the strain on our emergency departments, we'll decrease wait times, and we'll decrease wait times for other non-urgent surgeries as well, because we won't have people sitting in the ICU.
You still have 1 minute if you wanted to continue.
Well, let's continue then. Let's talk about head-to-toe healthcare because I have a minute to talk. The Liberals promised healthcare in 1997. They promised it again in 2019, and this time it's not even on the platform. It's a real shame because there are many Canadians who go without because they can't afford it, whether it's healthcare, for pharmacare. Look at me, I can move my arm today because I got physiotherapy for my frozen shoulder. But physiotherapy is expensive and people can't afford it. We should have this for everybody. The NDP's head-to-toe healthcare platform is going to make sure that everybody who needs any sort of healthcare, be it mental health, eye care, dental care, pharmacare, physiotherapy, will be available to every Canadian that needs it.
Thank you so much, Hal. 1 minute rebuttals from candidates. Nobody wishes to rebut? Anna, you have 1 minute. You're on mute, Anna.
It's hardly a rebuttal. It's more like agreement. I defer to public health, and we believe in a guaranteed livable income, which also would cut the 10% poverty rate, which folks have not been lifted out of. Our crisis is more dire right now than it ever was. The opioid crisis, there has been overdosing at a 75% increase, and wellness, sovereignty over one's own requirements would really help, and in fact, save money in the crisis and emergency response services. I feel strongly that the municipalities ought to be granted sovereignty over their own decisions because healthcare is situational based on density and ethnicity. A lot of factors weigh in, demographics. So in our platform, we have what's called, I have to jog my memory with these acronyms. It is a charter that returns the 10% on the dollar tax to the cities and sovereignty over their own decisions. And this would help in the preventable crisis.
Thank you so much, Anna. Ali, you have been recognized for 1 minute. You're on mute, Ali. Yeah.
My apologies for that. I just very quickly wanted to touch on a few things that are in the Liberal platform. Obviously, over the course of the past year and a half, Canadians have seen that there are challenges with our healthcare system. So you will see in our Liberal platform money that has been set aside for the provinces to deal with long-term care. But in addition to that, we have also recognized the need to assist the provinces, and we have set the money aside for the provinces to hire 7,500 additional doctors, nurses, and health practitioners. And lastly, we will continue to work with the provinces to make sure that they address the wait lists that exists in the various provinces. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ali. The next question is to Al. This is on immigration. Canada is accepting refugees in large numbers. It has been the tenet of Canadian foreign policy to be welcoming and integrating refugees into Canadian society, especially after the great work of the Honorable Lloyd Axworthy and the responsibility to protect in the international forum. Canada depends heavily on the immigrant population for population growth and economic growth. The PPC has committed to reducing the immigrant and refugee intake from 350,000 to 100 to 150,000. Given the aging population of Canada, low fertility rates, and silence in your platform, in your party's platform on the issue of temporary workers, which forms a big contingent of the seasonal labor force in Canada, how would you reduce the labor shortages and which could stall economic growth? What impact does your party's plan have on integrating the refugees into the Canadian society at the grassroots level, for example, in the community of Willowdale?
Thank you very much for that question. The party's platform has been to reduce the number of immigrants allowed to enter Canada annually, while increasing the number chosen because of their qualifications and work experiences. In doing so, we hope to boost our economy by bringing people in who can help us to grow to grow and develop faster and better. In terms of the refugees, we open our arms to help people around the world who are in dire need. However, we also believe that charity begins at home. We're currently experiencing a housing shortage and demand that has pushed the cost of purchasing to beyond the point of being affordable. This is in combination with the growing population who are homeless, will create a greater burden on our system while increasing risk to already vulnerable people. How can we help the refugees if we're struggling to help our own people? I believe slowing down immigration for a period of time, we're not talking permanently, will allow us first to solve our current problems while providing better care and solutions for our current residents. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Al. Hal, you have a minute for rebuttal or comments.
How can we help refugees if we can't help our own people? That's not the right question. The question is, why won't we help our own people as well as refugees? When we give the wealthiest Canadians billions in tax shelters, during COVID, the wealthiest Canadians they became richer by over $70 billion. That's just not fair. And a system of bringing in immigrants who are rich and leaving everybody out is also not fair. We know that people who choose Canada as a home contribute immensely to the economy, and they have a lower level of unemployment than people who are born in Canada. We have to fix that. But it's not about keeping other people out. It's about working together and making the rich pay their fair share. It's about priorities. The priorities of the NDP is people, not profits.
Thank you so much, Hal. Daniel, you've been recognized for a minute.
When I knocked on the doors in Willowdale, it's not the numbers. You know, Liberal government always keeps raising the numbers of immigrants that they're gonna take in. What I hear at the doors is sad, where you have a husband waiting for her sponsored spouse to come to Canada for a year and a half. We have a PR holder who had his card expired in the process of, the paperwork for a year and a half. That's unacceptable. Liberal can say how many people they're going to accept, but what about all these people who need service? The Conservatives, we're going to add resources so that we can shorten the processing time, and so that people like family can reunite quicker, and those people who is applying for a PR card can get it in timely basis so that they can start working again.
Thank you so much. We only taking 2 rebuttals. So Ali, unfortunately, Hal and Daniel were the 2 rebuttals on this issue. So there have been a lot of questions streaming in on chat. So I'm going to try and put a couple together. There's a couple of questions on property pricing and affordability, and there's a question about childcare and affordability. So I think I'm going to pose the childcare and affordability in this situation to all the candidates. You'll have a chance to answer on this. So childcare costs in Toronto is averaging almost close to $2,000 for an infant, is one of the highest in Canada. In addition to cost, local parents know that often even you can afford them, spaces are simply not available. There's long waiting lines and so forth. What would your party do to both make childcare more affordable and create sufficient spaces, removing barriers for parents to fully participate in workplaces? So Ali, I'll start with you.
Thank you. As you know full well, the new $10 a day childcare program is truly one of the most significant aspects of the platform that we've put forward. The reality of the matter is that if we look at the province of Quebec, which first set up childcare 25 years ago, it's pretty obvious. First of all, it helps Canadian families because in a city such as Toronto, where some families are paying upwards of $1,700 for childcare, it's important that we be there for those families. So $10 a day childcare will certainly take a huge burden off the back of families. In addition to that, the experience in Quebec does demonstrate full well that it is also good for raising our labor productivity. So this makes eminent sense in terms of helping families, but also in terms of economic growth. Now, as you know, the Conservative Party is offering tax credits. Tax credits aren't going to help those families who really need the most help. And Mr. O'Toole has said that if he is elected, despite the fact that 8 out of 10 premiers have already signed on to this childcare program, the $10 one, that he will tear it up. I think that is a terrible, terrible thing to do. The reality is Canadian families need help, and we have an early learning strategy, and this is a great thing to look forward to.
Thank you, Ali. Next, we'll go to Hal.
So the Liberals have been promising childcare for decades. And they finally got started with it with a sort of patchwork deals with each province, got about 6 provinces going, maybe 8. And then Justin Trudeau called an election. And as Mr. Ehsassi has just said, when Justin Trudeau loses, that could all be just blown away. He basically gambled with our future, and he's going to lose. That wasn't the answer. The answer was to work with the NDP to get that job done. Usually, before you ask for a promotion, you finish your work. But Justin Trudeau stopped in the middle of his work, and he didn't get the job done. Now, I agree, the Conservative plan is completely useless because giving somebody a credit, it only works if they can actually find the spot to put their child into and if they can afford it. And so it will benefit the wealthy for sure, but it won't benefit the rest of us. So we actually support the idea of $10 childcare. And we're thankful that the Liberals took about 50 years to do it, but finally started getting to work to do it. But we want to get the job done. And so what we would do is we would take that patchwork of different things, set a national standard, and provide a national plan for childcare. And we'll get it done quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Hal. Anna, you've been recognized.
Thank you both for that level of detail with childcare. Frankly, I have left that matter for my later reading because it is nearly a traumatic topic for myself. The ship has sailed for me, and my children are now in the public school system. We struggled when learning centers lost funding. I will stay tuned, and you can be sure that the Green Party is in alignment with childcare. But I want to address the housing portion of the question because we need to declare a federal housing emergency. Let's not avoid the topic and make space for a federal housing advocate. This disproportionately affects families with children who have their resources more strained. And so, well, that concludes my point. I mean, the issues are bound, and I hope I addressed the question. Yeah.
Thank you, Anna. Al?
I cannot speak on behalf of the party, but on behalf of myself, I do support helping our parents or families with healthcare. It is very important. It's important for the families to help them get back to work or to increase productivity. I do wonder how it's going to be paid for. There are many promises that are made by the leaders, especially at times of elections, and promises that are not always kept, but promises that are just meant to elicit voters to vote on their behalf. So that would be my question, but I would like to see childcare be much more affordable and accessible to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. And last but not least, Daniel.
Thank you for the question. It is very important for me as a father. When my kids were really small, my wife had to give up his job to care of my kids, and I had to work maybe one full time and a part time for me to make ends meet. So it is important for me. Sadly, I agree a couple of points that Hal has said. Liberals always promise. They've been promising this 3 decades ago, and finally come out with a plan that would happen in 6 years, not now. I'm sorry, Ali. Parents, mothers need help now, not 6 years later, not 10 years later. Now, after broken promises, I hardly doubt that will become a fruit. Conservative plan will be in effect right away. We will help up to 75% of tax credit, not tax deductions like liberals have right now, tax credit, so that low income to middle income can enjoy their freedom of choosing who they want and what kind of the childcare they want for the child. Liberal plans only would allow to non-profit organization childcares.
Thank you.
Only
Daniel.
one choice. You only have one choice. You have your individual choices on where you want your child to be.
Thank you, Daniel. Ali, you have your hand raised. I wasn't going to allow rebuttals, but in this situation I will. And going forward on some of the questions, I'll allow rebuttals, quick, short rebuttals, since we have some time on our hands. So go ahead, Ali. 30 seconds, if you could. You're on mute, Ali. It's the age of Zoom, so.
My apologies for that, but just because Daniel named me, I just thought it was only fair that I get in there. First of all, not only does the conservative plan not help those families that need it most, but also it does not address the supply side of things. In contrast to that, our plan, what it will do is within the first year, it will reduce the amount of money parents have to pay for daycare by 50%. So unlike what Daniel said, that they have to wait for 6 or 7 years, that is not accurate. It is not true. This is immediate help to families. And that's precisely why we have 8 provinces having signed off on this agreement. So it's interesting that everyone's faulting us for having gone through all this hard work. The reality is the provinces have to agree to this before it can happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Hal, you'll have a 30-second as well.
Thank you. So, and again, Ali, this is not directed at you, but at your party's performance. It's not that what you're saying is bad. I like hearing what you're saying. I like hearing what Justin Trudeau promises, because a lot of what he promises is sort of based on checking our sort of promise book and saying, oh, I'll do that too, and I'll make it look better. The problem is the actual implementation. And the Liberal government on all of its promises fails to implement. And that's the problem. Promises are great, but what we need is action.
Did you want me to respond to that?
Hello, can everybody hear me now? Hello? Oh, brilliant. Okay. I don't know. Somehow I was muted when I thought I wasn't. So the next question we have is regarding gun violence. So not a day goes by when we don't turn on CP24 and we're noticing that there's another death, senseless death due to gun violence. Question to all the candidates over here. What steps would your party take to end this cycle of violence? And how would you bring about gun control or any sort of policy program that curtails this senseless behavior? I will start with Anna.
I don't have the action plan sorted. I'm going to stand with banning assault weapons. And having lived in the United States for 9 years, I used to work in a winery and I had to deliver a giant pallet of 48 boxes to the local gas station. And the man that was helping me out, named Sniper Rick, who lived near us in the canyon, placed a pistol on his dashboard. And it was a condition that was so shocking. We don't want to see this happening in Canada. While we respect individual rights and sovereignty, we must coexist in the city. So, of course, I'm in alignment with moving towards safety.
Thank you, Anna. We'll go to Al.
I don't believe that gun control is the answer to gun violence as much as banning drugs to stop drugs from entering our communities. I think we need stronger policing. The police needs to have more authority in that field, and maybe increasing our police forces in order to combat the violence and the drugs in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Al. Daniel?
I can personally say it's shocking that we have so much gun violence. Even in Willowdale, I had a scary moment last year where the police knocked on my door and they said there was a report of gun being fired right beside my house next door. It is scary and it is coming to our neighborhood. Our conservatives, we don't think it's right for the government. We always think it's right for the government to choose which guns to be banned. We believe that they should be banned. However, it should be a committee of nonpartisan ways of choosing which guns should be banned. On top of that, we don't think is doing anything to fight the crime. Liberal government has been banning guns, but the crime increased 20%. So obviously, whatever they're doing is not working. Conservatives will fight the illegal guns by which will lower the crimes by increasing resources to the police, increasing the resources to the border agency, as well as working with social services so that young kids cannot get involved with gangs. We gotta create programs so young kids can join instead of joining gangs.
Thank you, Daniel. And Ali.
Well, I don't think anyone who lives in the city of Toronto would ever deny the fact that guns are a problem and that our government has to do so much more. That's precisely why we have decided to ban assault rifles, something that the Conservatives have fought us tooth and nail. In addition to that, we have provided resources to border services to make sure that guns aren't smuggled. Thirdly, provided the province's money.
Ali, would you unmute yourself? Sorry, I had to mute everybody because there was multiple people who were unmuted and speaking over you.
Thank you. I don't think there's a person in Toronto who doesn't understand how gun violence is a problem. The reality is, in 2021 alone, we have had 174 victims of gun violence and 28 casualties. So We have put forward a comprehensive plan to ban assault rifles. We've provided additional resources to Canadian Border Services to make sure that guns aren't smuggled into our country. And we've provided the provinces with additional resources to fight gangs. But as everyone knows, over the course of the last week, we have seen the Conservative Party flip-flop all over itself. But what you should bear in mind is that when Mr. O'Toole was running for the leadership of his party, he got an A+ from the gun lobby. Now he's pretending that he gets it, but the reality of the matter will be very, very different. And I would urge everyone to look at the policies we have in place in our platform.
Thank you, Ali. And Hal.
So I rarely bother to comment on the People's Party of Canada's platform, but what I would like to say is that what we do not need, whether it's for banning guns or banning drugs, is we do not need more armed police on the streets killing racialized youth, which is what we're going to get if we increase the police presence. That's not what we should be doing. What we should be doing is figuring out, why are people turning to gun violence in the first place? And it's not because they necessarily start out as bad people, right? We have to look at the root causes. And forgive me for committing sociology, as Justin Trudeau was accused of once, but we have to look at root causes. It's poverty. It's lack of affordable housing. It's lack of having a job. So with our plan, which creates affordable housing, which looks at creating good, well-paying jobs, lifting people out of poverty, and a universal basic income, which will make sure that everybody has the minimum support that they need. That is the best way to end the need for people to resort to guns. That's what we should be looking at.
Thank you so much, Hal. The next question we have is directed to Daniel, and then we'll have rebuttals on that, go from there. Over the course of the pandemic, the Government of Canada has provided cities with $2.5 billion in funding through the Rapid Housing Initiative to fund modular housing developments in several neighborhoods, often resulting in reduced green space for seniors and families. The Liberal platform indicates that it plans to invest $4 billion in a new housing accelerator fund, which aims to tackle NIMBYism and encourage public transit-oriented development, lane reductions, red carpet, bus lanes only, and reduced vehicular lanes, bypassing the Ontario government, the provincial policies. Can you provide details on how your party plans to tackle NIMBYism, where citizens are concerned with federally funded lane reductions on streets like Yonge or modular housing projects placed in their Willowdale communities?
Thank you for the question. When I knock on the doors, I hear a lot of questions about our housing project at the 175 Comer Avenue, like I said before, as well as they're concerned that the traffic is getting out of control. Now, Liberal government so far has been trying to bypass a lot of provincial jurisdiction and funding directly into municipality. I believe that that's not the way to go. We should respect jurisdictions, provincial jurisdictions, and they should know what's best for their residents. Not Ottawa knows best way, and this is how Liberal government and Trudeau it has been governing for the last 6 years. Listen, this $6 billion is gonna, I know locally it's gonna impact our traffic because they're gonna be implementing a bus-only routes along Finch and Steeles, and we already had a bicycle lane on Willowdale, and it doesn't do any good for climate as well. As you know, if traffic gets bad, our emission goes up. And I think as far as the environmental concerned, we should be really, really concerned where Liberals are putting their money into. We believe that Conservatives should respect the jurisdiction of the provinces and spend the money the way that is best serves the resident.
Thank you, Daniel. I will go to Anna first and then Ali.
The Green Party, as is reflected in the platform, really understands individual sovereignty on issues. And I invite folks who are squeamish of change to connect with a situation and follow some of the information. With homeless people, I approached homeless people during my endorsement signature campaign. And, you know, if you're worried about something like lice, it doesn't jump. Just, they really are not a problem if there is a supportive situation. So our policies do grant people what they need based on leadership in their own demographic. In Canada, we've got experts like Gabor Mate in the West, who has so much intelligence on the topic. So Canada could do better with these situations. Of course, just sending panic funding to the city will cause a scramble, and that wasn't a good situation with the land. With regards to the roads, municipalities do have studies like 880 cities where patronage increases in commercial corridors when the traffic slows down and when the traffic reduces. Especially now, we can see cities in advanced nations who have been through the cycle of a typical Western economy like we are, who have experienced success in these areas, Copenhagen, what have you.
Thank you, Anna.
Yeah.
So is it my turn? Yes, do I get to speak?
Go ahead, Ali. I think it was your turn.
Okay.
Ali,
Thank you.
yes, it is your turn.
I just wanted to respond to what Daniel said. On the one hand, he's saying that he does want transit. And the reality is that our government has invested more in public transit than any previous government. And the reality of the matter is, Daniel says that we've been stepping on provincial toes. No, that is not the case. We actually came to an agreement with the government of Ontario where we will be extending the Ontario line and the Eglinton Crosstown line. And we are investing $10 billion. The province of Ontario is also kicking in money for that. So where Daniel comes up with this idea of us stepping on provincial toes is truly novel to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ali. Hal?
Thanks. So I want to talk a little bit about what Daniel said about the traffic and emissions and stuff. So the whole point of increasing funding for public transit is to improve and electrify public transit so that we reduce emissions. And if we make public transit good enough, people aren't going to need to take their cars everywhere. And so we'll have fewer emissions, especially if they have electric cars. So I think that it's okay to decrease the number of lanes if we increase public transit. The other thing I really want to address is this NIMBYism, not in my backyard. The question I will have to ask, I'm going to push back on this. I'm going to say is, if you're not going to do it here, where are you going to do it? And if we're going to say that we're going to just push the problem to somewhere else, the problem of unaffordable housing is never going to get solved. The problem of homelessness will never get solved. So I would ask those people who live around the area and would say, would you give up part of your backyard so that we could not use up this park that apparently, from the people I've been speaking to, very few people actually use? Will you give up your backyard so we can save that green space? And they'll say no. They like their backyard. We have a lot of people here in Willowdale who have big backyards that they can enjoy their green space, but they don't. But they fight for the green space that they don't even need. And meanwhile, they're willing to let people be homeless out on the streets in our cold winters when we could actually help them. And I think that, as a social democrat, I find that very appalling.
Thank you very much, Hal. And Daniel?
I just have to respond Ali's comments. It's simply not true. Conservatives will commit to public transportation. We have committed to GTA's, Metrolinx expansion, as well as expanding the TTC to Richmond Hills. We have committed to that. He's not truthful when he says that they're overstepping the jurisdiction. You are overstepping because you are spending $6 billion just to the municipalities, not passing through the provinces. You are overstepping. So if you vote for Conservatives, we'll respect the jurisdiction and have more public systems investment to create more jobs.
Thank you very much, Daniel. This question is again to everybody, and then I'll let debate kind of flow from there. Apart from fuel consumption, climate change can be addressed at numerous levels. Much of that balance is between cost and benefit. What is your party's platform or policies? What will be your party's efforts to help average middle income Canadians, residents of Willowdale, realize their potential to be able to do their part to help curb climate change? Highlight any specific policies and programs that you're keen on with your party's platform. So first I'll go to Al. Al, you're on mute.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, I
There
lost
you go.
it. Sorry, yeah, there we go. Again, I cannot speak for the party itself. I mean, climate change is an issue. More so is global warming. I believe in education, and we need, myself included, to consult with the specialists, with the scientists, with the people who are better educated to guide us and to help us to do more to reduce emissions and greenhouse gases. And that goes for myself and for the community of Willowdale.
Thank you very much, Al. Next, we'll go to Ali.
Thank you very much. Obviously, our government understands full well that if we want to grow the economy, we have to seize the opportunity of green, clean technology. That's why since the first day we were elected in 2015, we have actually allocated more than $100 billion on climate action. And if anyone does take the time to go through our platform, looking into what we will be doing going forward, you will see that every environmentalist will tell you this is a comprehensive plan. Just recently, we heard from Mr. Mauclair, the previous leader of the NDP, that this is a marvelous plan. We've also received the endorsement of the leader of the BC Green Party. This is an important issue, and I would truly ask every voter to go and look at the platforms. I would also counsel you to look at a new paper that came out for policy options, which graded the various parties. And they gave us an 8 out of 10 for the Liberal plan on climate. For the Conservatives, I believe they gave him a 5 out of 10. For the NDP, 2 out of 10. And I'm not quite sure what they gave the Green Party, but I think it was 2 as well. But please, I hope everyone does do their research on what the parties are proposing.
Thank you so much, Ali. Anna.
Thank you for the question. And I invite the individual consumer not to worry about the onus on themselves, because for too long we have been criticized while we're trapped in patterns of urbanism and proximities and products and plastic industry lobbies. It is hardly achievable for the average consumer to do anything. So I do invite you to look at your consumer habits. Think about whether the product that you are purchasing needs to crisscross the planet and cause us to keep cooking with all of this transportation and emissions. So the Green Party is looking at measures like disaster mitigation adaptation and giving funding for that, nationally determined contribution, which will address big businesses and their emission patterns. What is so scary about talking about the role in businesses leading the emissions problem? The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, has not been modernized in a very long time. Our oil industry has been grandfathered into standards that existed in the 1960s. Given the emergency at hand, I'm shocked that these standards have not been audited because we're losing so much money in handling floods, forest fires, heat waves, and I can hardly even speak about the death toll of these sudden heat waves, sudden deaths. They're greater than in one day than 1 month of the worst pandemic month that BC had. So please don't be daunted, consumers, but you can vote for climate action.
Thank you so much, Anna. And we'll go to Hal, please.
Thanks. So I think this is a really good example where the Liberals say really good things, but their actual performance says something else, right? The Liberals talk about their accomplishments, all the billions of dollars and hundreds of millions that went into these projects, but in every single year that we have data for, our emissions have gone up since 2015. So it hasn't actually worked. The other thing is that I saw initially with dismay, I saw that our climate plan that actually means something got a 2 and that the Liberals got an 8. But if you look at the people who were involved in writing that report, who happened to be associated with the fossil fuel industry, talking about stuff like sustainable fossil fuels, we can understand why they would give the Liberals the better plan, because the Liberals give billions of dollars to the oil and gas industry every year, whereas we would cut those subsidies and we would electrify public transit, improve it so that people don't have to use their cars here in Willowdale. We would also do retrofitting in people's homes so that they use less energy, they use fewer fossil fuels and emit less. So a local approach as well, which would create great green sector jobs, as well as making everybody save money on their energy bills. This is a win-win situation if we actually take action instead of just talking about it. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Hal. And Daniel.
Environment is serious. Like I said before, we have forest fires in BC, we have flooding issues and high temperatures and unforeseen tornadoes in the south. And there is a climate change and climate crisis. We need to work seriously on this. Not like a Liberal Party where they say a lot of things and they tax carbon tax to every individual to make things more unaffordable. Having said that, they have not achieved the targets in each every year. Like, I have to agree with Hal. They talk a lot, but they don't do much. And that's their problem. That's how they've been governing for the last 6 years. In conservative plan, it's a serious plan where it is well researched, well respected by individual research, Navis research, and is a doable plan. We are gonna put a price on carbon where we're not gonna have the Ottawa collecting the money, but it will go into your own savings. And we're gonna invest in clean energy vehicles. We're gonna invest in public transportation, and without foregoing our economy, hardworking people, and foregoing the jobs. We're gonna have an environmental plan that will work for every Canadian. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Anna, quick 30-second result.
Thank you. We cannot get there with both systems. We must use the diversion of $12 billion from the Trans Mountain Pipeline to get started on the green transition and have clean energy corridors between Manitoba Ontario, and Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. It's in the Green Party platform, and we've got the best scientists behind it. We are not losing jobs by slowing down the oil process. Like I mentioned, 40 years of work and a just green transition. We have outlined the just green transition, and we're the only party that's doing it. If we don't stop oil production now, we will not meet our targets. It's physically impossible. It's science. It's a lot like medicine. Thank you.
Thank you. And Hal.
I just want to say one thing about the conservative plan, where you go and you fill up your tank with gas and you pay money into a fund, and then you can buy nice things that might be energy efficient. I think that's great if you're rich and you can afford to use more and more fossil fuels. You'll get more and more credits. That's not going to solve climate change. It's a plan that doesn't work from a party that doesn't believe in climate change. Denial, delay, or action. The NDP is going to go with action.
Thank you so much, Hal. We're almost nearing the end of our 2 hours together. And I want to reserve the last 15 minutes for each of the candidates to speak on issues that we couldn't cover. There's so many other questions on chat. I wish we had the time. I wish the candidates had the time. Unfortunately, we don't. But the question that I wanted to ask you, and this is kind of synonymous with somebody who's in public office, right? We want to see the ethics there. We want to have that trust in our elected officials. So scandals are not new to politics, and ethical behavior of our government is tantamount. Recent events of the last few years, and even ongoing, only serve as a stark reminder that people in power bear an extraordinary burden and a tremendous responsibility to the citizenry of the country. In an age where MPs such as yourselves, or potential MPs such as yourselves, must balance between towing a party line or to preserve one's position within a party, or acting contrary in line with your personal beliefs. What practices, processes, or policies would you undertake to ensure that you are avoiding any ethical dilemmas? How would you hold yourself accountable to your constituents? How would you hold yourself accountable to your party? And what if there was a conflict? I will start with Al.
I believe in leading by example. We need to hold our leaders to the same high standards of ethics and morals that we expect from ourselves, or employers, or employees, friends, and family. What one does when the cameras are not on tells the character of the person. We have current leaders who behave badly even with the cameras on because they have become untouchable. I need to be accountable to my riding, to the community that I've made a commitment to. I need to be able to live with myself, where my ethics and morals are mine to hold strong. If there's a disagreement between me and members of the party that I represent, then we need to work that out among ourselves. We need to come to some sort of agreement. I don't believe in selling out or selling my soul to toe the line of the party. I have very strong ethics and morals that I will abide by. And if I make a commitment to my community, that's what I will stick to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Al. We will go to Anna.
Honesty and ethics is on the front page of any Green Party policy. My personal lodestar is natural law. And in 3 words, in First Nations culture, this means that everything is related. So you look at the cause and effect of every action. I have the privilege of some very special relationships in 2 villages, and I have carried out some requests between these villages. One example of an enactment of natural law is that as a part-time meat eater, I once raised 5 turkeys, and they had a good life. But then I didn't outsource their slaughter. I tried it myself. And as an urban girl, this was a very intensive experience. And it is a a severe image to bring up. I'm sorry if that's dysregulating to anybody, but it is the type of ethical conduct that allows you to connect to your actions. Since then, I vowed never to engage the industrial meat packing process as so highly inhumane. And this is just an example. So we need to look 7 generations forward and learn from the First Nations who had a very sustainable lifestyle. Thank you for the question. It's excellent.
Thank you, Anna. Daniel.
Canada's conservative believe that accountability is very important. It's the second in our secure the future. First is jobs, and second is accountability. We're going to be introducing an anti-corruption act, and it will introduce a tougher laws to require ethics in government, prevent cover-ups, and ensure that lobbying is properly regulated. The Trudeau Liberals don't believe the rules apply to them. At the height of the pandemic, they gave nearly $1 billion to almost $1 billion to a charity that had paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to the Prime Minister's family members. Canada's Conservatives will pass an anti-corruption act to ensure that there is a monetary penalty for any violations of the Conflict of Interest Act. We will increase fines for ethical violations from a maximum of $500 to $50,000 to deter unethical behavior. We're going to ensure that cabinet confidence can no longer be used to shield government insiders from criminal investigation. Cabinet confidence is meant to ensure good government, not shield illegal behaviors. Avoid a repeat of the SNC Lavalin scandal by requiring that all meetings by corporations and organizations be reported, and ban any lobbying on something that is subject of criminal proceedings. We need a change of doing things, and vote conservative, and we'll change these things.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Next will be Hal, and then we'll end with Ali.
Thanks. So I think the first thing that we have to remember, and this is how I think whenever I think about becoming a member of parliament, which I hope to do in less than a week, is that elected officials work for Canadians. Canadians aren't working for their elected officials. And that's a principle I think that can guide you in everything you do, whether the decisions that you make that affect others or decisions that affect yourself, whether it's taking a gift or a trip. How do we avoid an ethical dilemma? So first of all, if in doubt, ask the ethics commissioner in advance. But I'm not, I know that some people have done that and there have still been scandals. So I don't think that that's quite enough. So what I'd like to do is sort of go back to my grandparents, Chaim Shaya and Freitke Cooper, 2 people who were very formative in who I am today. They were honest to a fault. They were true socialists. And they were very strong supporters of the NDP. They'd be proud to see me here right now, even though I'm not speaking in the language that they're used to. They'd still be proud of me. But what I would say is, what would my grandparents do? And if my grandparents would do it, then I think it would be okay. If it wouldn't pass the smell test for my grandparents, then I would not do it. The other question that was there was, about supporting policies that you don't agree with, because that's part of ethical dilemmas as well. And I'm proud to support every single policy in the NDP's platform, which I know is rare, but that's why me and the NDP, we're really in sync. It's great. I will never support a policy that goes against my values. I would resign first, and I would leave the party. Luckily, I don't have to do that because, as I said, the party and I align very nicely. So that's how I would avoid an ethical dilemma. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hal and Ali. Ali, it's your turn. You're on mute. There you go.
Sorry, I heard you say Hal and then Ali. Thank you. Well, let me be very, very clear. The reason why all of us strive to be in public life and public service is because we care. We care about ideas. We care about improving our country, making sure that it moves forward. So integrity is really part and parcel of that process. Now, each of us are part of parties, and our country is vast. So the first thing you realize once you arrive in Ottawa is that you have people from sea to sea to sea, have starkly different perspectives. But the reality is, when you're part of a party, you have to stand up for your constituents. And I can assure you that I have always been outspoken in caucus, in parliament, on issues that matter to Willowdale. So let me also make this clear. I have been in public life now for 6 years. And I don't think anyone can ever say that I've engaged in negative behavior. I've tried to slam anyone, because the only reason we go into public life is to uphold the highest standards. Why do I say this? Because just a few days ago, my Conservative candidate here in Willowdale just sent flyers to residents in Willowdale saying that the Liberal Party intends to tax the sale of primary residences. That is so incredibly wrong. We have had elderly people come to our campaign office and ask me whether that is correct or not. It is not. And the Conservative candidate knows this full well. So I would ask him to tonight, in the interest of upholding integrity, to say that that is incorrect, because we're all running to serve the public, to serve our country, and to actually engage in scaremongering is just incorrect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ali. Daniel, I understand, and thank you, Ali, for posing the question, but just because of the interest of time, I cannot allow this debate on this particular issue, but I do thank you for the questions. Hold on one second. One second. So I've been overridden, so I will allow a response in this situation in the interest, because the audience wants it. So Daniel, you have the floor for 30 seconds.
I employ everyone to go to Liberal Platform 2021. Page number is 14, and read it carefully, very carefully. There it states clearly on the sentence that they will be taxing any houses that's been sold within a year. To every Canadian within a year. Just imagine if my daughter had to change school, move to another city within a year, they're going to tax it. They're going to tax it. If a military person needs to move to one base to the other base, they're going to tax it. So I don't understand where Ali is telling me that I am not very truthful. I think he should come clear and read page 14 for us and tell us that's not true. Thank you.
I will let the candidates have the last remarks for the evening. So before I sign off, I'm going to say thank you very much to each and every candidate over here. Thank you so much for making the time. I understand you have a busy schedule, and also being evening, it's family time. So again, thank you very much. I know we didn't cover a lot of topics. 2 hours is not nearly enough. Even for me on a personal level, I could just talk hours and hours. So thank you again. Audience members, this is your chance to gauge who represents you best. If you haven't found the information that you were looking for, I highly encourage you to look at the platforms, to reach out to their offices, to engage the candidates in the last few days that we have before you have to vote, if you haven't already done the early voting. I would like to thank BCNA for inviting me to moderate. I hope I have given it some credence and justice. Again, in the interest of time, I know we had to cut short a lot of questions. Having said that, I will open the floor to Al. You have 3 minutes for closing remarks. Again, there's no rebuttals. We'll just go around the table and all the candidates will get to speak about and go from there. And then lastly, the president of BCNA, Nathan, will say a few words and then we'll conclude the evening. Thank you again. Go ahead, Al.
Thank you very much for your contribution and participation in this debate. And thank you, Nathan and BCNA, for organizing and hosting. And thank you, Mr. Rahman. I'd like to thank Anna, Ali, Hal, and Daniel for engaging with me and allowing me to get to know you better. I hope this debate has been enlightening to our audience, as it has served in strengthening my commitment and pledge to advocate for you and Willowdale with the passion and determination that I'm known for, and an open mind to the changing needs of a growing community like ours. Vote for unity, integrity, and change. Vote for PPC. Once again, my gratitude and appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Al. Next, we will go to Hal.
Thank you. It's an honor to stand for election. It also takes a lot of effort and courage. And I want to thank and congratulate each one of my colleagues who shared the spotlight with me tonight. Sometimes the spotlight was very strong. I also want to thank the organizers of the meeting and our moderator, Mr. Rahman, and all of you who tuned in and posted questions. You've heard a lot from us, maybe more than you wanted to know. And now it's time to make a choice. I think the choice is very clear. We can move backwards, or we can stay where we are. Or there's a third way. We can aim for better. I fully support the New Democratic Party's platform. I believe in Jagmeet's vision for Canada, where our government works for us, not for billionaires. A government that takes the best care of our most vulnerable citizens, be they our elders or our children. A government that takes bold action on climate change and supports all of us to move into a new green economy. We can build a Canada where no one has to go decades without clean drinking water. A country where everyone gets the healthcare they need, regardless of where they live or their ability to pay. A universal basic income, so no one is left struggling like they were during COVID. Never again. A country that rejects racism, hate, and division, and creates an environment for the multicultural nation that we profess to be, where we can love who we want, pray how we want, dress how we want, and be who we want to be. Are you ready for better? I sure am. So please help me and Jagmeet bring better to all of Canada. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hal. Anna? Anna, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to get to know your candidates and showing up tonight. You really are improving the democratic process. I want to come away with a positive sense, but I am worried about imminent dangers that we face. Elections or no, I will be going to the fire department and the police department and developing emergency responses for heat waves. I cannot stress about the frequency of severe weather events. My family has responded to Hurricane Irene. We implemented a thesis for bank stabilization, and I witnessed full hand what a 100-year storm flood event would do to a community. The army was called in, there was food scarcity, everything was on the rocks, literally, mold. We have to be prepared, and I'm just afraid that I have not heard preparedness tonight. Even with food sovereignty, we saw what it feels like to be behind and and dependent with vaccine rollout. And unfortunately, we're facing the same thing with agriculture. So we need to have a national food policy. Canada is the #1 importer of value-added foods, but we export nearly inedible foods like corn to feedlots and canola. We've got to make our nation safe, focus on these projects, and stop just shuffling money. And the Green Party has so much hope in its paperwork. Every time I read the platform, I am consoled. And I hope you will be too. There's hope. So stay strong, stay safe, and plant a tree before the winter. You will see it bud in the spring. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. Daniel?
It has been an honor to be involved this debate. Thank you for hosting it, BCNA, board members and members as well. I am honored to be here with among other candidates who put their name forward. I know it's not easy to commit to be a politician, and I am sure that you had a deep thought before you putting your name forward. Thank you for doing that for Willowdale. You have two choices. Conservatives, we have secure the future recovery plan. We're gonna secure the jobs by increasing the number of jobs to 1 million in 2 years. We're gonna secure the accountability by introducing Anti-Corruption Act. We're gonna secure mental health by putting more resources into mental health. We're gonna secure our country by increasing our ability to produce in Canada self-protection, and as well as producing vaccines in Canada. And we're going to secure Canada's economy by balancing the books within the decade. We have a government who have failed you in the last 6 years. They've been, if you want more reckless spending, more corruption, more fiscal waste, more economic decline, more unemployment, then Liberals are the parties to vote for. But us, if you want to secure the future, vote for Conservatives. I have been knocking on doors, and I've been talking to some seniors who are very worried that I am in front of the house, they're the doors with the mask on. But you know who'd call the election? The Liberal government. It's the Trudeau who wanted the majority, and they saw the fourth pandemic coming, but it did not stop them calling the election. I was very worried in front of the seniors, but I had to campaign. I heard the concerns. There are lots of issues at the doors. That's my passion of talking to people one-on-one and making sure that the issues are heard, and there are issues. Try to resolve the problems. I will work hard because I will deeply care for my family, for my community, and our country. We want Canada back strong in every way, and vote Conservative for a change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel and Ali.
Allow me to start off by thanking Bayview Comer for hosting us tonight. It has been a great privilege to share this stage with individuals who I fully recognize, care about our country, and want to see us tackle all those things that matter to Canadians. Now, politics is about ideas. That's why I've really, really enjoyed the last 5 weeks, again, being on people's doorsteps, learning from them just as much as I use the opportunity to share the Liberal vision. And on that point, let me say this. I have known Hal for 4 years now. I think I went knocking on his door, and he is a very upstanding person. Actually, yesterday with Hal and Anna, we had our first debate. And I'm very, very grateful that such incredible people step forward for public life. But the reality of the matter is, this is an important election. The differences are stark. And I would invite everyone to look at the Liberal platform. Just today, a new study came out by the Institute of Fiscal Studies, which actually assessed the various platforms and determined that the Liberal plan is the most fiscally responsible one. And why is that? We've learned a lot over the course of the past year and a half. And what we've learned is that we have to move forward together. This is an election where we have to care about seniors. We have to care about healthcare. We have to care about safety on our streets and gun control. We have to care about climate change and how we will proceed forward. There are so many issues at stake here. These are values that we all cherish. So I would invite everyone to look at the various platforms and determine for themselves which party offers the most compelling vision to ensure that we continue to be the best country in the world. Now, Mr. Lee just said that in our platform, we are saying that we're going to tax people on their primary residences. Nothing could be further from the truth. What we have said is that we understand affordable housing is important. And we've said that we will crack down on predatory practices, but that does not include taxing anyone's primary residence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ali. Thank you very much, candidates. Again, really appreciate the time and effort. We are not taking any rebuttals. These are closing remarks. Thank you again. I will now give the floor to Nathan Gomes, the president of BCNA, to make final remarks before we end the evening. I wish each and every candidate the very best. The last few days to the audience, please go out and explore all the information on the party platforms, question the candidates if you have the opportunity to, and be informed. So the best advice I guess I can give to the audience is gather the knowledge, be informed, and participate. And the participation is going out and voting on the 20th. Thank you again. Have a great evening. And Nathan, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. I'd just like to thank all the candidates for coming to our event. Like I said, it wasn't easy to put together this event. There are a lot of conflicting schedules. Each candidate I've been on the phone with the exception of Hal, but I've heard that Hal is an amazing medical doctor at Mount Sinai who wears Winnie the Pooh ties sometimes, but is has a very good bedside manner. Al Wahab has promised to give the BCNA dance classes at some point in the future. So he's also very committed. Anna came out to our event recently, and I got to know her a little better. And she's very passionate and volunteering. So she might volunteer in our community as well, and very committed to public service. Daniel Lee, who has in the past been a value and is currently a member of the BCNA and our neighborhood. He has been very committed to public service and volunteerism. And of course, Ali, who's come out to, as our MP, you'd expect to be very busy, but, he's come out to our trivia nights and some of our other activities as well. So I can tell you that each one of these candidates is very, very committed to making a difference, and everyone wants to influence change. And I can tell you that, just what I've seen in my interactions over this past little while is that, every one of them cares about Willowdale. And I was very, very impressed by the quality of the debate and, willingness to discuss even challenging subjects. And I think you all did a great job, and you should all be very happy. So I wish you all the luck, and thank you for coming. We really appreciate your time and taking that that extra step. So if you haven't voted, make sure you vote and read all the platforms, and whichever party you go for, whichever color, whether it's purple, red, blue, green, or orange, go for it, and just remember to vote. So thank you again, and everyone, and I think that's the end of our debate. Thank you.